There is a man you probably know. Maybe it's you. He wakes up before the alarm, already thinking. Not about something specific. About everything at once. The work that doesn't stop when he leaves work. The family that needs a version of him he can barely find at the end of the day. The bills that are paid, but for how long? The notifications that arrive before he even puts his feet on the floor. He is not in crisis. He didn't lose his job. Nothing hurts in a place a doctor can see. There is no concrete reason for him to feel this way. And that is exactly what confuses him. Because on the outside, life is working. On the inside, he has been operating at his limit for so long, he no longer remembers what it felt like to be different. It's not depression. It's not weakness. It's exhaustion of a specific kind that no one taught him to recognize. And the most dangerous part of all, he thinks this is normal. He thinks this is how everyone feels. He thinks enduring in silence is what men do. The Stoics had a name for the state in which a man loses touch with who he truly is while continuing to fulfill all external obligations. It wasn't weakness. It was the clearest sign that something needed to change. And that sign, most modern men have been ignoring for years. Let me tell you how an exhausted man's day begins. Not with a collapse, not with a visible crisis, with a phone. Before getting out of bed, before drinking water, before saying good morning to anyone, he is already consuming. News, messages, emails, the feed that never ends. And his brain, which should be slowly coming out of rest mode, has already been thrown directly into the middle of 50 simultaneous demands. This happens every day, 365 days a year. No break, no transition, not a single moment between sleeping and starting where he simply exists without needing to process anything. He doesn't notice the damage because it's gradual. Like a faucet dripping into a bucket, you don't see it filling. One day the bucket overflows. And then he wonders where all that water came from. There is a term neurologists use called cognitive load. It's the amount of information the brain can process before it starts to fail. Modern man lives permanently at the limit of that load. Not because he is weak, because the environment was built for this. Every app, every platform, every notification was designed by entire teams of engineers whose job was one thing: keep you looking. And they are very good at what they do. The result is a man who at the end of the day sits on the couch and cannot read a 10-page book. Not because he is stupid, not because he doesn't want to. Because the attention muscle was used to its limit before lunch. But he doesn't identify this as exhaustion. He identifies it as laziness. And then comes the second layer of the problem. On top of the real exhaustion, he adds guilt. He should be doing more. He should have more energy. Others seem to be managing. Why can't he? And that guilt consumes what little was left. Until the man who should be resting at 10 o'clock at night lies in the dark with his eyes open, thinking about everything he didn't do. There is a conversation that does not happen. Not among men. Have you noticed this? Two men can know each other for 20 years. They can have had beers together hundreds of times. They can know each other's children's names, the teams they root for, their work problems. And neither one will say what he is really feeling. Not because they don't trust each other, because they were never taught to name it. From an early age, a man learns a very limited emotional vocabulary. He has anger. He has joy when his team wins. He has pride when his son does well in school. But that feeling of emptiness in his chest in the middle of a Wednesday afternoon with no apparent reason, it has no name, so it doesn't exist. What has no name gets swallowed. And what gets swallowed comes back in other forms. Disproportionate irritation at small things. Distance in relationships that should be close. Pleasure in nothing. That feeling of being physically present but truly absent. The woman notices. The children notice. Sometimes friends notice. He is the last to notice. Because he is too busy fulfilling functions to observe what is happening with himself. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself every night. Not to publish, not to impress anyone, to not lose touch with himself in the midst of everything the world demanded of him. He ruled an empire. He had more responsibility than any modern man can imagine. And yet he set aside time every day for one thing: listening to what was happening inside himself. Modern man does not do this. Not because he is less disciplined than Marcus Aurelius. Because no one ever told him this was necessary. That stopping is not weakness. That feeling is not loss of control. That a man who does not know what is happening inside him is driving in the dark. And driving in the dark long enough has only one possible outcome. There is a specific moment that appears in the life of almost every exhausted man. It's not dramatic. It's not a visible crisis. It's a mundane moment. It could be at a family dinner where everyone is laughing and he is there, but he is not. It could be in the car, stopped at a traffic light, staring into nothing for too long. It could be in the early morning, with the house asleep, him awake for no reason, feeling a weight he cannot explain. And in that moment a question appears. Silent, uncomfortable, impossible to ignore when it arrives. Is this it? It's not despair. It's something more subtle and deeper than despair. It's the feeling that he is living a life that works, but that is not exactly his. That at some point along the way he was meeting expectations, paying bills, being what needed to be for each person in each context, and lost the thread back to himself. Epictetus used to say that the man who does not know what he wants will spend his entire life working to fulfill someone else's dream. Not because of anyone's malice, because of a lack of his own clarity. And his own clarity does not appear on its own. It needs silence to emerge. It needs space that modern man does not give himself, because silence is uncomfortable. In silence appear the questions he was too busy to hear all day. So he fills the silence, with a podcast in the car, with a series at night, with the feed in the early morning. Anything to not be alone with what is inside. And the more he avoids, the heavier what he avoids becomes, until the bucket overflows. Not necessarily in a spectacular crisis. Sometimes only in a tiredness that no longer goes away with sleep, in an apathy that begins to color everything gray, in a growing distance from the people who matter most. These are the signs, not of weakness, of a man who has been owing something to himself for a long time. Let me talk to you about pressure. Not the obvious pressure, the pressure that appears in movies, that has a face and a name, and you can point your finger at it. The invisible pressure. The one that no one put into words but every man feels. Be productive. Be present. Be strong. Be sensitive but not weak. Earn well but don't be materialistic. Take care of your family but don't lose focus on your career. Be healthy but not obsessed. Be ambitious but balanced. Be available but have boundaries. These messages come from all sides at once. From culture. From social media. From family. From the company. From the relationship. And the man tries to meet them all. Not because he is naive. Because he was taught that coping is what defines a man. The problem is that these demands are contradictory. You cannot be all of those things at the same time with the same intensity. But he tries. And the constant attempt to be all those versions of himself simultaneously is one of the most sophisticated forms of exhaustion that exists. It's not the work that exhausts him. It's the work plus the guilt of not being home. Plus being home plus the guilt of not performing at work. Plus the gym he should go to plus the sleep that isn't enough plus the bills plus the relationship plus the children plus the aging parents plus the friend who disappeared plus the news that arrived plus the goal that wasn't met. Everything together, every day, without pause. Seneca wrote something that seems simple but stops you when you truly listen. He said that man's problem is not lack of time. It's waste of time. And the greatest waste that exists is spending energy trying to be who others need you to be, before discovering who you truly are. The way out is not a spiritual retreat. It's not dropping everything and traveling. It's not a spectacular life transformation that you post on social media. That is what they sell to exhausted men. And it sells well because an exhausted man wants a quick and complete solution. The real way out is smaller, more honest, harder in a different way. It begins with one thing. Stop lying to yourself about how you are. Not to your boss, not to your wife, not to your friends, to yourself. There is a difference between the man who says I'm fine because he is fine, and the man who says I'm fine because he no longer knows how to say otherwise. Identifying which of the two you are is the beginning, not of a journey, not of a healing process, of an honest conversation with yourself that should have happened years ago. What truly tires me out, not what should tire me out, not what is acceptable to admit tires me out. What truly drains my energy every time it appears? What do I do that is not mine but I became hostage to doing? What do I want that I never said out loud because it seemed too small or too big or too selfish? These questions have no quick answers, but the act of asking them is already different from everything the exhausted man normally does, which is to ask nothing and keep moving forward on autopilot, waiting for the tiredness to pass on its own. It doesn't pass. It waits. There is something no one says about men who break out of this cycle. It's not that they became stronger. It's that they became more honest with what they can handle, with what they can no longer handle, with what they need to stop. That honesty does not appear as weakness to the people around them. It appears as presence. The man who knows what he is feeling is fully in the conversation. He is not managing his own exhaustion while pretending to be fine. He is truly there, and children feel this. The difference between a father who is present in body and a father who is truly present. A child cannot describe, but feels, and carries that difference forever. The woman feels it too. She doesn't want a perfect man who never fails. She wants a real man who knows where he stands. Friends feel it. An honest conversation with a man who admits what he is going through is worth more than 100 gatherings where everyone pretends everything is fine. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire for nearly 20 years. Wars, plagues, betrayals, losses. And what he wrote to himself was not about strength. It was about clarity. About knowing what was happening inside him so he could act with integrity on the outside. Modern man has less responsibility than Marcus Aurelius, and less clarity about himself than ever. Not because he is weak, because no one taught him that internal clarity is a practice, that it takes time, silence, honesty. Every day, not when life falls apart. Before that, let us return to the man from the beginning, who wakes up before the alarm, who is functioning, who on the outside has everything in order. That man does not need pity. He does not need a diagnosis. He needs one thing: permission. Permission to admit he is tired without that meaning he is failing. Permission to not know the answer to everything without that meaning he is weak. Permission to want something different without that meaning he is ungrateful. Permission to be a real man instead of a walking function. The Stoics did not preach indifference. They preached awareness. Knowing what is happening inside you, not to surrender to it, but to not be governed by it without realizing it. The man who does not know he is exhausted makes decisions like an exhausted man. At work, at home, with his children, with himself. And the consequences of those decisions arrive. They always arrive. The difference is that when they arrive without warning, the damage is greater. You don't need to solve everything today. You don't need to become someone else. You need to start listening to what has been being said inside you for longer than you admit. That signal you ignored yesterday, and the day before, and last year. It is still there, waiting, not to destroy you, to show you where you truly are, and from where you can truly begin. One question before you close this video. No filter, not the answer that seems right. If you took 1 hour today, just yours, no phone, no demands from anyone, what would you feel? Relief? Anxiety? Emptiness? Write in the comments with one word. Just one. Because that word says exactly where you are right now. And maybe it will be the most honest thing you write today.